Caveat, I have a voice disorder. It cuts out mid-sentence. I have no control. If you need me to repeat myself, don't hesitate to raise your hand, and I will do so. Our objective tonight is pretty simple. We need to come together as a neighborhood, as a neighborhood association, as city council, as police, and figure out what is really happening with these security issues within our neighborhood. And as part of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, we are a 501c4 nonprofit made up of volunteers that have specific responsibilities in order to keep our neighborhood intact, moving forward, look at zoning issues, look at code enforcement issues, look at environmental issues, and do the best we can with security. Security is driven within the context of the neighborhood association based on funding off-duty officers to patrol the neighborhood. That's been the program to date because that's what we've been capable of doing. That's a function of math, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Of how, as the math increases, we can potentially do more things for the neighborhood with security. So our objective tonight is to really bring everybody together on the same page and to get organized. So let me just give you a perspective of what it looks like to get organized.
That's okay. It's part of getting organized.
Our sound guy here.
Right there. I've had to prop it over there. Usually I put it over there so they can. There's no way to prop it. Not tall enough to get over people's heads.
Yeah. All right. Not going to happen.
Yeah, that's okay. That's organized. Get organized. There you go. There you go. Oh, yeah.
So not on the speakers up top?
No. There we go. Good job.
Sorry about that. So that's the objective. Is we don't want this to be us versus them in any capacity. We want to get everybody on the same page of what's happening with the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, particularly with the issue of security, and see what we can do to all come together. We've got some ideas and recommendations on how we think that that's going to work, and we will talk through that. And I've lost my tech guy. So, just give you a brief overview of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. We want to talk about it by function and what the purpose of each function is as we represent the neighborhood. What we encourage is more communication from the website to these responsible parties as we identify them if we have particular issue or question within an area, as we identify persons that have certain responsibility. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the current state of security and what programs we have today with the dues that we have, what programs that we're going to recommend, and then we want to collaborate tonight openly with law enforcement as to what some programs are that we should consider taking on as a neighborhood, be it in volunteer capacity or in financial capacity. So we want to have open conversation about that tonight. We do have volunteers from law enforcement and city council, so I want to be respectful of their time and productive communication with them so that we come out of this as an organized neighborhood so that we all know what we have, what we don't have, and what resources we need, and how we can help. So that's one of the other fundamental objectives here. The key topics of interest, and this is kind of up for open discussion, is what's been really, quite frankly, going on a little bit on nextdoor.com and how we communicate, and how do we communicate productively. I've talked with Chief Yandura about this a number of times from the city of Brookhaven, and he encourages good open communication on nextdoor.com. But what we want to do, I think, is move it from maybe current state to really productive state. And so we want to talk with law enforcement as to how we best do that. We're going to talk about just open questions about Shady Valley Park. There's been a lot of question of what's happening with that. The porta potties, the time constraints, parking there, etc. We're going to prompt questions on the community program. A lot of discussion happening about yard sales. Are we inviting thieves into the neighborhood, or are we doing something productive for the community? I don't know, but we need to answer some of that together tonight, get recommendation from law enforcement, so that we have an organized method of going forward with some of these initiatives. And then, let's be transparent here tonight and talk about the transient issue that we may or may not have within the neighborhood. I'm not an attorney, I'm not a politician, and I'm not in law enforcement. So we want to encourage that type of interactive discussion with law enforcement. They are the experts at that. And I think we all need to hear how we should deal with these issues as a community. So that's the objective for tonight. Carrie Witt, our Pine Hills president, has shown up as well. And Carrie, a little bit of a different context today. Carrie is also the new incumbent chairman of the board of the Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce, and he was doing double duty tonight. So we appreciate that volunteer role and responsibility. Michael Alexander, who's the head of security for Pine Hills Neighborhood, is going to help me tonight as well. What I want to do is quick introductions of our guests. Then we're going to get into the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association Security Program as it stands today and where we think it can go. We're going to spend some time on that and then get into some of these interactive topics of interest. Guests for tonight, we have Councilman Joe Gibbia from District 4 of the City of Brookhaven. We have Police Chief Gary Yandura from City of Brookhaven. We have multiple officers from both APD and Brookhaven that have joined us tonight. And so the officers will be contributing as well as we get into the topics of discussion. Have we missed anything relative to agenda or points of interest that anybody would like to go through tonight?
That's a good start.
Okay. So the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association is governed by a set of bylaws, and those bylaws were written and it was established back in 2009. It is made up of volunteers. The volunteers have specific areas of interest as it relates to the best interest of our neighborhood. So what I'd like to do is go down the list of who those volunteers are by function within the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association and allow them to just stand up and get a name to a face association. And if you have any questions on any of the specific functions, we can talk about that tonight as well. But what I'd like to do really quickly is just kind of go down that list. So we have Carrie Witt as the president of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. Nancy Blywise. Jerry Cooper in zoning.
And ain't a volunteer.
I'm Greg Chevalier, the treasurer. We have Deanna Alexander as the secretary. Gene Cooper is responsible for parks and playgrounds. Michael Alexander, a couple of roles, the code committee, co-sponsor on the parks and playgrounds, and wears a security hat. So Michael, we appreciate all of your efforts. Bruce Williams is the Creek Watch committee. Wayne Olives, who I don't think is here right now, is our communications and PR person. So all of the notices that come out through the website are produced by Lane. Jenna Schulman is the VP of Atlanta. Jenna's in the back there. We have Leslie Benah, who is the VP of DeKalb. Again, Michael Alexander. And Carolyn Morton, who unfortunately won't be here tonight, is the member-at-large voting member and liaison into the Birdhaven Garden Club, but a lot of the community programs that happen. Is Jan Weinheimer there here? Jan is the president of the Birdhaven Garden Club, falls under the community, treasurer, I'm sorry, president of the Birdhaven Garden Club. Irma, can you step forward, please? Irma Walker.
I greeted everybody.
Thanks. And I was late, so I apologize. So the way that the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association works is very simple. We have dues that are allocated to security, and we have dues that are allocated to the neighborhood association. Those dues are pretty straightforward. $200 for the security program per address, and $35 per address for the neighborhood association program. And what that means in terms of the use of funds and how we use the contributions, with the security program, we use Atlanta Police Department and Brookhaven Police Department officers in their off-duty hours to patrol the neighborhood. And I'm going to talk about this. It's a very, very simple equation. They do a job, we pay them for that job. We only have enough money every month to pay them to patrol a certain number of hours each day. And we'll talk about what that exact mathematical equation is. But with that, there's a number of things that we have access to. We have access to the officers by a designated cell phone. We have the ability to request special observation on your home if you're out of town for an extended stay or extended time. We have the ability to request officers at particular times during the week, depending on their schedules. And a lot of that's coordinated through Michael. So if we're not communicating to Michael what our needs are, or we're not part of the security program, that's about the best that we can do, folks. So just a quick show of hands, who in the room here is a Pine Hills neighborhood security member? So we've got almost 80 to 90%. And I'll talk about what that means relative to the total neighborhood, size of the neighborhood compared to current total Pine Hills security members. That number is about 30%. And then I'll talk about that in the mathematical equation. For the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, by function on the previous chart, it's our responsibility to act out on those functions. one of the key instrumental things that happens out of that association is on the zoning and the code enforcement. So Jerry Cooper has done an incredible job at fighting the battle of all the things that go on around our neighborhood that can significantly impact the value of the neighborhood, either to a positive or a negative. In a lot of cases, that takes subject matter experts to make assessments and perform recommendations and opinions on how a zoning issue could impact the value of the neighborhood, positive or negative. So that Pine Hills Neighborhood Association money is primarily used for that purpose, to protect the value of our homes in the best interest of the neighborhood using outside experts. We also have another bit of an issue that we have to be concerned about, and that's the potential of fighting legal battles. So we as a board have made a decision that we will keep a fixed reserve in the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association account of $10,000. That will allow us to battle any extraordinary zoning or legal issues as it relates to the potential impact to the neighborhood, either on a positive or negative basis. The other dues out of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association go to supporting community-type programs. We do have the yard sale, we support that. We have the Halloween Carnival, we support that. And we have the recent road closure for the Halloween trick-or-treat night. That is funded primarily out of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. So at that point, everything becomes simply mathematical. And to talk about what that looks like, I'll get to that in a slide or two. But one of the things that we're looking to do to add to the power of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association is to come up with a community resource program and a security council. We don't think we can keep fighting this battle as a volunteer neighborhood association with one individual in the form of Michael Alexander. We're divided between two different counties as well. As a big rectangle, we're roughly 2/3 and 1/3. 2/3 Fulton, 1/3 DeKalb. The 1/3 DeKalb of the neighborhood is now part of the city of Brookhaven. So with that being said, we think that we need some volunteer resources to come into the picture as part of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association board in the form of a community programs council that ideally represents both sides, DeKalb and Fulton, and a security council that represents both sides, DeKalb and Fulton. We just need more horsepower to come up with ideas and programs that we can put in place. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But that right now is one of our more critical needs for supporting the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association board. Everybody with me so far? Any questions or? So the current state of security, as I said, and I'll say it over and over and over again, it comes down to a mathematical equation, and I've got the details of that on the next slide. We'd like to propose that we do establish a security council for the neighborhood under the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, which by direction of the bylaws, if you are a Pine Hills Neighborhood Association member and or security member, then you have contributing opportunity to what happens within that council, i.e. ideas that we have to look at and accept, recommendations that we have to look at and accept, etc. So what we'd like to do is establish a security council that is led by Michael and 3 representatives from the DeKalb side, volunteers, neighborhood, neighbors, and 3 representatives from the Fulton side. And with that, to begin to look at the use of money that we spend and whether it's all directed to the off-duty security officers. Maybe we set a particular threshold that says we'll use that money for so many hours per day of off-duty, and then let's look at other uses of those funds, perhaps signs or cameras, etc., etc. But we don't have the bandwidth anymore with the complexity of what's happening with the security issues in the neighborhood to do it alone. So we need some folks to step up on the Security Council. That's one of the specific asks that we have tonight as part of the Neighborhood Association Board. As I said, one of the things that we're going to look at with that council is a proposed spend modification that's not just all against the officer time. And we've got some ideas on that initially, but we want some neighborhood input. I would also personally like to have open dialogue with law enforcement tonight. They are the experts, and they know how far a dollar can go if we do this versus that. And so I'd like to begin some of that dialogue tonight as to what some of the best uses of that money and spend could be. We don't want to make the decisions as a board and or the council only. So what we're going to recommend is that we kick around some ideas tonight, and that between now and December 15th, we will put out a survey to the entire neighborhood. Ideally, we would accept input from contributing Pine Hills Neighborhood Association due members and or security members only, but we're open to that dialogue, and accept input through a objective method as to what the best ideas are for the use of that extra spend of money. So that's one of the things that we want to propose tonight, is to get the entire neighborhood to begin collaborating. There's been a lot of great ideas on nextdoor.com. And so we want to harness those into a method by which we all can contribute and all recognize what our opinions and recommendations are, and all collaborate in the decision process. So we're going to implement that and kind of keep that open until about a December 15th time frame. One of the things that we have the opportunity to do as part of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, based on our criteria of keeping a $10,000 reserve fund, is we have about $2,500 of immediate spend before we go into the 2015 member contributions. As we go into 2015 member contributions, that spend is obviously going to increase as we keep the reserve at the $10,000. That will allow us to do things with the Security Council based on the recommendations that come back from the survey. So we're open to that type of discussion. So let's talk about the Pine Hills security program and what that gets us. On the previous charts, I talked about what it gets in terms of communication with the officers and requests to patrol homes when you're out of town, etc. But it really becomes a very simple mathematical equation. Right now, we have 182 paying members as part of the Pine Hills security program. That represents about 29% of the homes in the neighborhood. Gets us $36,094, which the average per home contribution is $198, 1,444 hours at a $35 per hour rate for our officers off duty, which is an extraordinary, gracious offer on their behalf at that rate. We get 3 hours per day, about on average, 365 days a year. There's no other way to cut that math. If we increase the amount of participating members for the security program to roughly half the neighborhood, and I think that number is conservative because I think I'm working off a little bit of a smaller number than the total homes in the neighborhood, we would get an extra $24,600 into the security program on an annual basis. So now you get into some interesting conversations. Okay, well, with an extra $24,600, does it make sense if I use all of that, deplete all that money on extra security officer time, I only get 2 extra hours per day. So how many big problems can we solve with 2 extra hours per day? Probably not a lot. So this is where the Security Council formation comes in, and we think it's incredibly important. How can we best effectively use, potentially, an extra $24,000 in what I call extraordinary one-time spends on security? Does it make sense to put up a sign? Does it make sense to put up a neighborhood watch sign? Does it make sense to look at technology and use that money for that purpose? And oh, by the way, what happens if we get 75% of the neighborhood to participate? That's an extra $50,000. And then we do that year over year over year, we can begin building a comprehensive security program over a 2 or 3 year period. So there's really no other way to cut this pie. It's a mathematical equation when it comes to what the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association can do with security. So that's a lot of the dialogue tonight. We want to open that up to conversation and solicit ideas and input. We do believe that we're going to keep a threshold, and that is our ability to make that decision as part of the board and the bylaws. And we think the threshold we're going to keep at a minimum of the current officer participation. It gets a little dicey if we start to up that time based on the regulations within law enforcement, and if officers are coming right off of duty and they're patrolling, how much sleep time they have to get before they enter another shift, etc. So we can't just arbitrarily say, well, let's just add 3 more hours a day and have a consistent 6-hour block per officer. So there's a little bit of science behind how we do that if we make that decision. But that's a lot of the dialogue and conversation that we want to have tonight. Michael, would you like to add anything on security?
No. A couple things. That the math is off on this. For 3 hours a day, we have security, and it comes to about $38,000 for the year. With the officers.
So caveat on that, we do have security members that do additional contributions beyond what the recommended amount is, and that's how we get up to that. If you look at the spreadsheet, I think it's like 3.699 hours, so when you round it up, 4.
Also with the police officers, we get the same police officers that work the neighborhood, so they get to know homeowners. They are in communication with the officers who patrol the neighborhood. All of them, when they're on their clock, patrol the neighborhood also, so they're very familiar with the neighborhood. The officers also count on security to offset their salaries, and so it helps the officers with their family. It also supports the Brookhaven and Atlanta officers, and just showing support for the work that they do. I'd love to get anyone who knows one of the things we're trying to work on is surveillance cameras. Working on a cloud-based system. I have a gentleman here that I've been talking with Bob Carter, where the security cameras are all linked to individual homes, and then they communicate with one another, potentially with the Brookhaven and also the Atlanta Police Department. It's very, very new, and so they're still working all this out. But people who may be more computer savvy, definitely than I am, which I'm very challenged, would be very helpful, along with neighborhood watch program, and just getting community involvement. One of the most important things is to see somebody who's suspicious in a car, and you're at home, use a line or a home line, not your cell phone, and call 911 and just report what you see, because officers are in the area. They'll come by without everybody's eyes out there helping law enforcement. It's an uphill battle, but if you're able to report to them, even if you're just questioning whether something just doesn't look right, it's best to call and let them check it out if they are questions. But anybody who's interested, please talk to me after the meeting.
What happens if you don't have a landlord?
What Well, then you use a cell phone, then you're gonna most likely get Brookhaven if you're trying to reach Atlanta. So if you're calling from your cell phone, it goes to the nearest tower. If you're on a landline, they know where your house is located, so they know whether you're in the city of Atlanta or the city of Brookhaven. If you do not have a landline, use your cell phone, and they will transfer you, and it's just going to be a little bit more time consuming.
Yeah, Chief Yandera will address that in a little more detail on the land
But
relation.
Brookhaven and also City of Atlanta, they are here to help us, to guide us, and they've been fabulous with looking after the community. And so, thank you.
One of the things Michael mentioned was a neighborhood watch program. We have the opportunity, the city of Brookhaven and the Atlanta PD has neighborhood watch training programs. So neighborhood watch is not communicating on nextdoor.com and saying, let's set up a bait car and who's got a gun license, let's get it in. Let's get these guys. That's not neighborhood watch. The cities have neighborhood watch training programs, but that takes people and effort and bandwidth and volunteers. I strongly believe that if we want to step up security in the neighborhood, that we've got to be a part of that and stepping up. And so one of the things that will be recommended on the Security Council, whether it's the Security Council members or others, is that we look into taking advantage of a trained, educated method by how we actually implement a neighborhood watch program. And we think we should do that on both sides, the Atlanta side and the Brookhaven side, and collaborate with what the best of the methods are that we learn from that. So Michael had briefly touched on it, but that takes an educated training program with recurring education on that program, and that simply takes volunteers. So those are the types of programs that we're talking about. Some of the key topics of interest, and at this point I'd probably ask that Chief Yandera come forward, talk a little bit and interweave what he was going to talk about tonight with some of these topics. I don't know if Sergeant Singh is here yet. Sergeant Singh. And we have a question, sir?
Yeah, I guess before we launch off into solutions, we really understand what the problem is.
Can you speak up, please?
Yes, before we launch off into solutions, do we really understand what the problem is? And has something changed? It seems to me that the crime rate has gone up tremendously just in the last year or two. So what precipitated that? Did we just get discovered? Or do we have some new, whatever causes that ought to be addressed?
I'll let the experts talk about that. I'll give you an opinion, but that's simply an opinion. As social media increases, social conversations increase. As social conversations increase, you become much more aware of things you probably just weren't aware of. So I'm not statistically saying whether crime has increased or not in the neighborhood. The specific question of are we becoming more aware of it or what's changed, I do believe that one thing that has changed is the ability to more quickly, effectively communicate. And so that may have the perception that crime is up in the area. I don't know the answer to that, but that's an excellent question. We don't want to launch into solutions. The solution we want to launch into tonight is we'd love to see 3 Atlanta side and 3 DeKalb side raise their hand and tell Michael they're on board for the Security Council. We'd love to see volunteers on both sides that raise their hand and say, we'll go through the neighborhood watch training program and get with the experts and get that rolling tonight. Those are the only solutions that we think we want to come out of here tonight with. But that's a perception and an opinion of why I think we believe that crime has increased in the neighborhood. Again, a lot of those, yes, Pat?
Wouldn't we also want to come out of here the recommendation that we get more of our neighbors to join the security? That very low ratio? That's a request, absolutely. The more neighbors we get, the more spend we have. We do think that there's some opportunity now
of not just using that spend all against additional officer hours and beginning to build on a compounded program of adding security functions to the neighborhood in the form of signs and, as Michael talked about, in the form of technology. Yes. So these are the prevalent issues. A lot of you have emailed me privately. There's not a lot outside of this. It's the discussion around what really goes on in Shady Valley Park and what can we do or can't do. We have a lot of perceived midnight and overnight vehicle break-ins, locked and unlocked issue. We have a lot of perception and emails that I've received on daytime break-ins and burglaries and overnight. We have transients in the neighborhood. So what I wanted to do was allow the chief and Sergeant Singh and the representatives from law enforcement to comment on these and what we can best do to productively try and reduce and or implement programs, reduce these issues or implement programs that is the best use of money in order to enhance the security in the neighborhood. Any other questions of prevailing issues that we want to generally talk about? Yes, sir.
I think the question to the other person is a good question. If somebody can tell us what has changed.
Yeah.
Last year, we had this meeting like this, and we talked about putting in special cars in, secret police walking around. Everybody felt there was something positive. But I want to know what has happened the last 12 months. Why has it gotten, to my perception, worse? And that's the question.
With what we can do as a neighborhood, I don't want to beat the horse. It's a function.
But I know what you're saying. I would like to know what.
Yeah, absolutely. That's yep.
What has happened over there?
They have offered to address that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
but
If we don't address it, we want to come back to it. Yes, sir.
Yes, Robin Hendricks, past president of the Everose HOA, off Shady Valley Road. There seems to be, it's not just a Time Hills thing, it seems to be just in general crime that's just up right now. And that's why people are concerned.
okay.
That's the sole purpose of tonight in a collaborative effort to talk about that, what we can do. Absolutely. We had a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, if somebody is not a member of the Pine Hills Society or the civic organization and or the security organization, if they decide to join, would they have the opportunity to see what the budget is and how the money is spent?
Yeah, it's part of the bylaws, and we have reports available.
And the same thing, you would have opportunity to have the bylaws.
Yes.
as well.
On the website.
Yeah, they're on the website. Yes, ma'am. Other general questions before we have Police Chief in here? Approach? Okay.
Okay, thanks, Rick. What I'd like to do is go over some of the issues that were brought up. One of them was the cell phone versus the landline phone that was asked over here. Landline phone, actually, when your call goes in on the landline phone from your house to our dispatch center, to Atlanta's dispatch center, we're part of Chatcom now. It shows your address, everything about you, your phone number to call back and everything. Cell phones will give you a general location where that cell phone's at. But that cell phone, if you remember in the old days, which I remember, if there was an accident on, say, 85 or whatever, you'd have one person generally call from a business or something when cell phones weren't popular. They weren't inundated like they are now. Now if you have an accident on 85, you'll end up with probably 100 calls going through one center. And that one center, because those towers can only hold so many calls going through, they're going to get routed to different towers throughout the metro area. So your call could theoretically go to Clayton County, Fulton County, or anywhere really. So that's why it's important for you to describe exactly where you're at when you do call on a cell phone. Another program that you could actually join is it's called Smart 911. You could register it. Chatcom's part of it. I believe the City of Atlanta's part of it. You just register your cell phone, and you can register so when your cell phone, as long as that dispatch center that you're talking to is part of the Smart 911 system, it'll tell you your address, it'll tell the dispatcher your address and everything else about you. So it's just a good program to belong to. If you could actually put in there, if you have dogs in the house, how many children you have in the house, specific information about your residents, which is a good thing to know. As Greg said, I'd like. Says connection.
How do you sign up for Smart 911?
Just look up Smart 911 on the internet, and it should lead you to a web page, and it'll just ask you to fill out a bunch of information. And any dispatch center that subscribes to that, Chatcom, I believe Atlanta does, they'll actually see all the information when you call 911. All right. What I'd like to do first is just to give you an opportunity to see how you could pull up statistics, for instance, what's happening in Brookhaven. Go to our website, go to public safety, and there's crime mapping. You could actually plug in your address and see whatever's going on in your area within 500 feet, within 2 mile radius, within any period of time. Remember, this is a great crowd here. I think we spoke here when we first started up, and I think there might have been about 20 people here, I think, but so this is great. What you do is you go to search for events. I'll just give you a quick overview. Go back down, and you have to select it. Go allow it. I'll just allow it for once now. So then you go down. Well, might not work here. But what you end up doing is
attention. You may be infected with a virus.
now we can call 911. Anyway, I won't prolong this, but what you do is you go to the website, you click in your address, and there's a bunch of drop-down boxes. You can put in your exact address, and it asks you for date range. You put in the date range. So, for instance, before we came here, Major Brandon Gurley pulled up a bunch of information. We put in like October 1st, I think, through today's date. And you can put in within 500 feet of your address or within 2 miles of your address. It'll actually populate a map, and it'll show you a listing of all the incidents that happened, all the arrests, all the accidents, all the incidents that we had, and then there was one more, I can't remember what it is, ordinance violations. So it's very useful information for everyone to use. It doesn't give you specific information, but it lets you know whether it was a theft, an auto entered, or things like that. Now, to answer the question about the increase in crime, we just had a North Fulton Chiefs meeting today and a DeKalb Chiefs meeting today, and I learned something that I didn't know that is partially responsible for it too. North Fulton is having a tremendous problem with an increase with heroin use. Heroin used to be used predominantly in the poorer sections of the area, and what we're seeing now is kids from wealthy families up in Alpharetta, Johns Creek, in that area are getting hooked on heroin, and that's precipitating a lot of the crime going on. There's all different reasons for it. There has been an increase. I know Atlanta's had an increase. Within the past 2 days, we've had an increase of burglaries. Actually, the last month and a half or so, we've had an increase on the north end of town. I'll be honest with you, on our end, and what I have here is I've got just 2 slides I'm going to show what we've done as a police agency since we've been here, just some numbers which are pretty amazing. And then Major Gurley's going to go over exactly what's been going on in your neighborhood within the past 2 months. We made some good arrests in your area. I think the last one, and this all revolves around residents calling. You know, number one, make sure you lock your car doors. We've been preaching that for I don't know how long, and we're still getting cars entered with guns visible, computers visible, iPhones visible from on the front seats of the car and the center consoles. That's happening throughout the city, well, throughout the whole area, really. So lock your vehicles, and number one, don't put anything in your vehicles that's visible, you know, if you lock your vehicles too. But that's increased. We've made a number of arrests on that, and generally, when we make arrests on that, the problems that we have stop. But it just seems like it's a cycle, it's a vicious cycle. Some of the same people we're arresting end up getting rearrested. And I'll give you an instance on that. If you remember, when we first started up, about 3 months after we started, we had a home invasion. The lady was home alone. This was in East Brookhaven Drive, across from Capital City. She was home alone, her husband was out of town on business. She had 2 little girls with her in the house. They were alone. One was 5, one was 7. She heard glass breakage, then her alarm went off. She went down for some reason to turn off the alarm because it was a piercing alarm, but she got her 2 daughters and hid herself in the closet. We had extra officers working for a robbery detail actually on Buford Highway. So we had extra people working. We were able to catch the guy hiding under the bed. He already had jewelry from some of the bedrooms in his pockets. We arrested him, and then about 2 months later, I don't know if you saw it on the news, but we had I think it was an 8-year-old boy that was home looking out of his window about midnight. He was supposed to be in bed sleeping. He was talking with his brother, looking out the window, and he sees 2 guys breaking into his parents' cars in the driveway. Well, we got called to that, and we gave him an award for it. But we went out, he gave us a real good description of the guys. We located both of the guys. They were charged with entering autos. I think they entered about 6 autos that day. One of the guys was the same guy we caught underneath that bed 2 months earlier. So a lot of that's repeat offenders. You know, what they usually say is 95% of our crime is done by 5% of the people. And a lot of that's true, I think. So we keep on working with that.
Get them off the street.
Cars.
Now, this is prepared for the council, so councilmen don't look yet. This is for our budget preparations, but
Go over budget.
These are some of the things that we've done since we started up, which are kind of amazing. The calls for service that we had, it's kind of overwhelming and a lot more than I really expected when we first started up. But aggravated assaults, that's with guns or knives, 61. Battery cases, aggravated battery with gun, that's 165. Burglaries, and that's a mixture of the residential, business, force, and non-force, 335. And that's one thing we want to pass on too. To be honest with you, your area crime has gone down quite a bit in the past 2.5 months. We made an arrest, like I said, and that was because of neighbors like you calling up. One of them happened in one of the real nice condo complexes right off of Buford, North Druid. Somebody finally called up at 3:30 in the morning, and they saw somebody walk around a lot. Well, actually, one of our lieutenants was in the area. He got out of his car, walked into a parking deck, and he heard some noise or whatever. He found a guy actually getting out of the car. He had a knapsack or a backpack around his neck with a thing, and it was loaded with all kinds of iPads. He had GPSs and all kinds of things. Most of your incidents stopped after that. And Atlanta made a bunch of arrests too for similar things. And like I said, usually when you make an arrest like that, it's a group and things stop. We do have the extra problem of having some of our transient population and our homeless people. And we're having a problem on the north end of town right now, where actually we chased a guy, I think 2 or 3 days in a row, and we lost him. He knows his way through the woods better than anyone I think in the neighborhood does. But we followed him along 285. Our dogs even lost his track near the creek where we lost him. But he was entering cars, and it's crime of opportunity. He entered a bunch of cars, and we've been getting killed on the north end of town, right off of Ashford, Dunwoody, in the neighborhood right behind Montgomery Elementary School. But as opportunity goes, he checks the cars in the carports, and people are leaving their doors to their houses unlocked. Well, a guy woke up 3:30 in the morning and sees this guy going through his kitchen drawers. The guy had a 13-year-old golden retriever. He went out and chased this guy for about 2 blocks and called us. We got there. We saw him the next day, chased the same guy, but he's been getting away. So we got extra patrols out trying to do that. We're hiding in bushes and trying to beat down the bushes and try to catch him now. On a more serious note, was it today, Brandon, or yesterday? We had the guy, it was a burglary right off of Bubbling Creek, if you know where that's at, right off of Hart's Mill. This one we're looking, these are daytime burglars. The guy I was talking about, recently was just nighttime. We think he's a homeless guy because we did find a backpack where he had like 4 frozen pizzas in there, so he's going through refrigerators or shoplifting. But on a more serious note, the other group that's hitting us on the north end of town is they're kicking in front doors and they're taking big screen TVs, which is unusual because big screen TVs came way down in price now. We used to have a big problem with it. But they're taking big screen TVs. We actually have video surveillance. We're going to release it probably to the press tomorrow. We've got some good pictures. 2 people going in, kicking the doors, taking the TVs. The bad part about this is we have one of the guys on the camera holding the gun. He's checking the house to make sure no one's in there. So that's one thing we want to let everyone know. If anyone comes to your door, whether it be a solicitor, you think they're legitimate or not, give us a call. I would sooner check them out than have something happen. And what they're doing is they're going to doors, and if no one answers, they'll go in. So even if you're home, at least yell out, "Can I help you?" or let somebody know that you're home. Because what usually happens is they'll knock on the front door. If no one answers or no one says anything, they'll go around to the back and kick a door in or break a window or something to get into the house. So it's very important to do that. Now getting back to our crime here, damage of property cases. What was amazing to me here is I've had more suicides occur here. I've been in law enforcement for 38 years, I think, than I've had anywhere. We've had 6 suicides and one homicide, which was cleared up right away. 135 disorderly conduct cases. Fraud cases, they're continuous, and they get so confusing because Secret Service, Social Security number gets involved. Everyone gets involved in those, and no one wants to take the report because your credit card was used in California to purchase some property in England or something. So it gets confusing as far as jurisdictional boundaries and things like that. We made 140 marijuana dangerous drug cases, 26 weapons offenses. We have had 7 rapes. And this was the serious one that we're all trying to clear up right now, and they continue, but we've had 122 armed robberies, with probably about 95% of those occurring on Buford Highway. And one of the things we did when we started up was we made a specific outreach. We tried hiring officers to match, the population out there, which is predominantly Hispanic. And what was happening was the Hispanic population really wasn't reporting any of the armed robberies they had because, number one, they were illegal, or sometimes they're not illegal, but they didn't want to bother. Well, they actually have a nickname out there to the people who are arrested for the armed robberies. They're called walking ATMs because the Hispanic population that is here illegally they always carry cash with them, usually large amounts of cash. So they're victims too. So what we did was we outreached to them, and to be honest with you, as a law enforcement agency, one of the things we told them, we don't care whether you're in this country legally or illegally, but if you do something wrong, you're going to go to jail. But if you're a victim, you need to report it too, and we'll work with them. We had 163 auto thefts, and that brought up a point where we had, there's a company called LoJack, if you're familiar with that. If your car is stolen, generally it's the higher end cars. A lot of them have LoJacks on them. So when your car is reported stolen, the police department, as soon as they put the VIN number in the computer as the car is stolen, LoJack's activated. And LoJack actually gave, I think we've got 7 cars now hooked up with LoJack locators. So if you see our cars with 4 antennas on the roof, that's a LoJack, searching car or whatever. So our cars always get hits on those. So if a stolen car is anywhere in the area, it's like a little radar beam, and it starts beeping and lets our officer know that there's a stolen car in the area somewhere. So we're trying to do good things with technology in an easier and cheaper way, really. Theft cases are out of hand, really. And here's the other thing, just to show you what's going around in the neighborhood. We've arrested 331 people just in the past year and a half since we've been in business. To help us out with that, we're using technology on that. We purchased these, they're like fingerprint scanners. What you do is you put 2 fingers on it, and it'll actually identify a person, because the bad people aren't going to tell us their real names. The first day we implemented it, it was kind of amazing. One of our officers was driving down Buford Highway, and a girl got in a fight with her boyfriend. Well, she got upset, flagged down the officer, and said, he's trying to beat me up or beat on me. And so the officer asked for identification. Officer felt he was lying, so he pulled out. This was the first use of this equipment that we had. Well, the guy ended up being wanted for murder out of Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow.
So that's, you never know what's walking around. Here's some of the other things that we do. And, you know, we get complaints a lot of times. We don't want to be traffic Nazis or be known as traffic Nazis, and we don't want to. We don't write tickets for revenue. The city really doesn't need the revenue. We're out there trying to write tickets to provide a safe environment for everybody. And we try to gear it towards areas where we get complaints. To be honest with you, a lot of neighborhoods complain to us, and guess what? Guess who the first person usually gets a ticket? Somebody from that neighborhood. So the phone rings all the time with the council. I know my phone's ringing all the time too. But these are just some statistics that we have for the traffic citations we issued. 152 DUIs, 108 suspended licenses. You know, there's reasons for some of this. The driving while license suspended or revoked is usually a DUI driver from before. No driver's license is generally in somebody here illegally. And we've got a lot of hit and run accidents as a result of that too. So we're trying to catch up with all those. And on the bottom here, we've had 2,104 traffic accidents that the officers investigated since we've been in business. I think we've had 2 or 3 fatalities. Buford Highway right now, the city and the state are working together, and I think they'll be opening up the pedestrian crosswalks pretty soon. Last fatality we had was actually in the area 1 days before they started up. So we're looking forward to get that going, making them more pedestrian friendly. You know, Councilman Gebby had a bike rider come into town that's nationally known or whatever, and we're trying to find safe bike routes and things like that too. You know, to me the big thing is the crime app. Some of the other technology that we're trying to use, and you'll hear a little bit about it. Bob Carter's here, that Greg or Mike set up, I believe. We're looking at, we purchased 3 license plate readers. Is anyone familiar with what that does? It's kind of a neat technology. 2 of them are mounted on our police cars, and they rotate from different cars, and we give them to the officers with the high initiative. And basically what that does, if you see one of our cars with cameras on the back of it, one's facing forward, one's facing backward, it's actually reading every tag that passes it, and the squad car passes. And it automatically checks that tag almost instantaneously, whether the driver's wanted, whether the vehicle's stolen, whether the license is suspended, or anything negative. You give the officer cause to stop that vehicle. And they came in handy. We assisted Chambly with an armed robbery with the use of that, and Chambly just arrested, we had an armed robbery, can't remember where that one happened, somewhere off of Buford. Chambly stopped the car, actually it was an automatic, it was AK-47, I believe they used in the armed robbery. They stopped the car on Buford Highway in their limits for suspended registration, and lo and behold, in the back seat of the car was our victim's driver's license, wallet, and his information, along with the gun and everything else. So all that equipment comes in handy. The other thing we're doing is we've got the speed trailers we're putting out, and we're actually utilizing the speed trailers. We're going to be trying to purchase some license plate readers. Right now we have 1 of the speed trailers with an LPR lift, you know, mounted on it. So if you have a problem in a certain area, we could put that equipment out there, and it actually keeps track of all the tags that go through that neighborhood, which is a good thing. And we're clearing up a lot of cases just with the database that we're getting from that. Because not only do our license plate readers hold that information, but any of these tow trucks that are repossessors in any other jurisdiction in our area, including Atlanta, Sandy Springs has a bunch of them. All those tags that are red, we could go back and see where those vehicles have been hit. So if we have a burglary suspect, we could actually go back and see where he's been on certain days and check into the information and hopefully clear up some cases, which we've been doing. So we're just working smarter with more technology. I know enough about some of this technology to be dangerous. A lot of our guys are getting pretty good at it. So with that, I think that's all I have. This Major Brandon Gurley, he pulled up the statistics in your neighborhood. Like I said, your crime rate has really gone down since some of these arrests have been made. Crime overall, especially violent crime, I think has gone up throughout the whole area. And you could attribute a lot of that to, like I brought up, the heroin problem. You know, it depends on the geographic area you're at. It seems like it goes around in the cycle. You know, I worked in College Park at one time. The big thing down there was crack cocaine and cocaine, and marijuana is universal anywhere. I worked out in Paulding County, and the big thing out there was meth, because they were making it out in the woods. But now meth is coming into cities, and unbeknownst to me today, I didn't realize there was that big of a problem with heroin. Alpharetta had 4 deaths between Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Roswell, and Sandy Springs. Each of them had one person die from heroin in the past 2 months. And these were 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. Alpharetta, Paul Howard was the guest speaker at the one meeting we were at. They charged actually the supplier, which is a good thing for the heroin. They finally tracked him down, located him, and he was actually charged with the murder. And that's some of the things that we have to do. With that, any questions for me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You said that the crime rate has gone down since the arrest. When were these arrests?
It's been within about 2.5 weeks ago was
the last one.
arrest.
We arrested.
Local to our neighborhood, arrests in our neighborhood specifically.
Yeah. There was one, and a lot of it was a result of neighbors calling up, which is a good thing. I know one of them was caught breaking into cars. He came in on MARTA. And a lot of the people that were arrested are from South Fulton and Clayton County. But there's also some local ones. We've had burglaries in neighborhoods where it was actually a professional businesswoman that lost her job and kind of went off the deep end. And we actually found property taken from burglaries of houses and car break-ins in her house.
Wow.
When we were doing we were actually doing a follow-up trying to see if she saw anything.
Wow.
So you never know. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this question should be for you or not. The intersection of Roxborough and West Roxborough, there where the lanes go from 2 lanes to 1 lane, is that your intersection or is that Colton County's?
So Lynn?
I'd have to look at the map.
The intersection's on Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's
Then I'll ask the question later.
there's a lot of confusion as far as that goes too, because we just found out there's an address on Peachtree, was it 18, the one we're having issues. It's a big complex, and the actual entrance to the complex is in Atlanta, but the majority of the complex is in the city of Brookhaven.
Right.
So for some reason, all those 911 calls were registered to Atlanta's 911 center. So we're trying to get that changed right now. So there's no perfect science to it, and we're still, since we joined Chatcom, just so you're aware, we're trying to tweak the towers, because the actual cell towers have to be turned in to cover basically the city of Brookhaven for our 911 calls to go to Chatcom. So there's no fine science to that.
Yeah, the question was about traffic at that intersection, not about.
Okay.
So I'll ask it later.
Okay, when he comes up. Yes, ma'am.
Question, you referenced earlier, a man who'd been arrested and 2 months later was a recurring pattern. How does that happen? He's back on the street.
I hate to put blame, but a lot of it's our judicial system. You'll hear the judges say there's no, they're overworked and there's no jail space. You'll hear the jail say they don't have any more room. Everyone's trying to blame each other. And it gets frustrating for our officers. So what we tell our officers is just do your job. That's the best you can do, and hopefully the rest works itself out. I know one important thing that you all can do when we do make an arrest like that, and please advise the officer to let you know, but if you have something serious in the neighborhood that's a continuing problem, and we make an arrest on that, it really makes an impact on the judge if all the neighbors come in to show your concern, and that'll make the judge make the sentence harsher and look at it a lot better. Yeah. Yes.
In that case, how do we find out that someone's coming up for trial?
You could ask. You'll have a case officer assigned any cases, and he can let you know because he's gonna have to go to court, or he's aware of the court dates too. So.
Does Brookhaven have a jail?
We got temporary holding cells. We use the DeKalb County Jail. And that's another thing. Every time we arrest somebody, it takes an officer out of service for a minimum of 2.5 to 3 hours because we have to transport them down to jail. You gotta get booked in, and then For some reason, the judges don't want to use the courtroom in there. And I don't know if you heard, we're trying to fix that problem right now, but a DeKalb officer was shot transporting one of the prisoners alongside the jail. It's an unsecured area, which is unheard of in most places, so we're trying to straighten that out right now, and we're trying to work to get that fixed for the safety of everybody. Brandon?
So I'll be brief. I know Atlanta's trying to get the vets to get up here, so I don't want to take any more of their time. Again, thanks for having us. You guys have raised some very good questions, both at the beginning of this and throughout this meeting. And if you look around you right now here tonight, this is Neighborhood Watch. This is community policing. This is the neighborhood, the community coming together with local law enforcement to talk about problems that you're facing so that we can better fight those issues and resolve those problems. If you're not feeding us the information, we're not properly equipped to take care of those problems for you. Now, it's unfortunate that Pine Hills currently, and I may be wrong, my wife will tell you that I have been wrong a time or two, but I believe Pine Hills is currently not a member of our Neighborhood Watch group, which we call BPAC, Brookhaven Police and Citizens Together. When you join BPAC, Officer Miller is here, he's our BPAC coordinator. When you join BPAC, you'll have an officer assigned to your neighborhood that will share information with you. You'll share information with that officer for our department. They'll attend your meetings that you have on a regular basis to discuss any issues, and it opens up the lines of communication much broader than what they currently are, so that we can address issues as they are arising. And it would simply supplement what you are already doing for your security program that's already in place. So I strongly encourage you to identify a BPAC liaison within Pine Hills that can join us over on the Brookhaven side to share that information. I know Atlanta would love to have you guys in their Neighborhood Watch program on the Atlanta side as well, so that we can continue to share that information and better train you guys on how to be our eyes and ears of the community to feed us information about what's taking place. And it is unfortunate, as Greg pointed out, that we will not be able to issue you a badge and a gun at the end of that training, but at least hopefully we'll be getting back valuable input from you or feedback from you that we can take, and we can locate these suspicious people, these suspicious cars that you see in your neighborhood. As the chief mentioned, earlier today I went back to September the 1st just to give you guys an idea as to what's been going on with the Brookhaven side of the line for Pine Hills. And looking in that general area, we have taken, since September the 1st, a total of about 25 incident reports. They've ranged from thefts to burglary to entering autos being the hot topic of not just Pine Hills, not just Brookhaven, but if you watch the news nationwide. And the same message that law enforcement is giving out nationwide for this is that we simply have got to quit making this a profitable business for the thieves. We've got to quit leaving our iPhones, our firearms, our laptops, and our vehicles. When they stop profiting, they're going to direct their attention to something else. But as long as we're making it easy on them, we're going to keep being victims. And not just in Brookhaven, but this is a nationwide issue. If you watch the news, you see it all the time. So we've got to take steps, and I'm preaching to the choir. Last night I went to Academy Sports. I walked in the door and I said, cell phone, my iPhone sitting in the cup holder on the charger, just asking somebody to bust my window and take from me. So I'm preaching to the choir when I say that. We've got to quit making this a profitable business for these thieves. We've got to take stuff out of plain sight so that they're not just walking through the parking lots or driveways and looking in and seeing these items that they can take. Another key point, when you leave work, you're headed somewhere, you know you're going to make a stop, you know you're going to be making a stop on the way home at the mall or the grocery store. You got your laptop or your briefcase, your bag, your purse, anything that you know is not going to be going inside with you into the gym or wherever. Don't get to your destination, pop your trunk, or open the back door and hide that item, because these people are sitting in the parking lots wearing their ghillie suits and their camouflage, and they're watching and they're preying on these people that are going out shopping. And every time that I'm taking a report, or one of my guys are taking a report on this type of situation, where the laptop was under the back seat because they got to the store and they got out and they slid it under the back seat, nothing else in the car was taken. Nothing else in the car was rummaged through. They went to the back seat and they took the laptop out from under. That's because they were sitting there watching you get out and hide that item. So if you know you're going to be making a stop on your way home or to your destination, you know you're going to have something that you're not going to take inside with you, put it in your trunk before you leave. That way when you get there, you get out, you go straight into the store, you're not opening yourself, you're not making yourself vulnerable, because these are kinds of opportunities that we're talking about. If you give them the opportunity and you make it easy, then you're more likely to become that victim. So what we want to do is we want to take steps within Brookhaven to make these crimes a little bit more difficult, more risky, If they commit the crime, they've got to take risk in doing so, and hopefully they'll make our job easier at catching them. And if we do that, we're going to push them out of our area to easier targets. Maybe on the Atlanta side of the world. But we're going to push them out of our area to easier targets. And if we all start doing that, then hopefully we can kind of just remove them from the area altogether. But again, with that said, the entering autos, we've had 12 of those in just your neighborhood since September the 1st. And again, it's not a small, unimportant issue. It's very important to us because in one of those, you think of entering auto as being typically a nonviolent crime, and one of those issues, they were confronted by a victim, and they were confronted with the suspect with a handgun. So these guys that are committing these crimes, they're still armed. They're not looking for confrontation, but they're arming themselves for if it comes to them. So be careful if you do confront someone breaking in your house, you come home from work, or you confront them breaking in your car, call 911 immediately. Let us do what we're paid to do. Don't put yourself in any unforeseen dangers, okay, or unnecessary danger. Yes, sir.
If they come in my house, I can shoot them, right?
I have yet, in 16 years, left a neighborhood watch meeting or shooting service and not been asked that question. Everybody wants to know.
And if I'm in my car and they come in my car, I can't shoot them, right?
Simple answer to that. You have to be able to articulate that your life or the life of a third party, a family member, someone around there, was in danger.
If they have a handgun,
hey, one more danger could, how easier did they just make that?
Make sure they're in a house, because I had one instance where I told the guy, we got to charge you, there's not a jury or judge going to find you guilty, but this guy chased the bad guy, blocked down the street, shot him in the butt with a shotgun. I loaded up a bird trap. He said, it still doesn't make any difference, you can't chase him down the street. That's one
shoot them in the back is a clear indicator that we're running away. Yes, sir. Brookhaven Policing Citizens Together, BPAC, that's the name of our neighborhood watch program. But with that, if you guys don't have any other questions for me, I'll let Atlanta take over.
I got just one other thing to bring up. We are providing, safety classes, Brandon. I think they're filled up. We got a waiting list for women.
Yeah, women's self-defense class. The next one is next week.
The last lady that got carjacked, I think, was at the class. She's a Brookhaven resident. So because of that, one of the restaurant people called us up and asked if we could put on some self-defense classes for women. It went over so well. We got 40 ladies lined up waiting for another class. So just get a hold of anyone at the police department. We'll put you on the list. The other thing we're bringing up in the springtime, we want to do it in the fall, but it's a little late right now, but we're starting up a Citizens Police Academy, and hopefully that will evolve into a volunteers in policing, and or if you saw Sandy Springs actually has citizens on patrol. The requirement to do any of that stuff will be you have to become indoctrinated with the police department for the Citizens Police Academy, which is only 1 day a week for 10 weeks, just 3 hours for that 1 day. And it gives you, to me, the most important part is you get to know the officers face to face rather than the uniforms. It gives you a good indication of what they go through every day and what our jobs are all about. So.
We have one in September.
All right, just kind of a time and agenda check. It's 8:15. You're scheduled from 7 till 9, so we're definitely on track. We're going to hear from Sergeant Singh from the Atlanta Police Department and our beat officer, Ron Stoddard. Ron Stoddard is on Nextdoor.com. It was not his intention to disguise himself. I had to register him through my neighborhood because that's the way Nextdoor.com works. And I didn't realize he wanted his full profile, so I created the RNST ID for him. I've yet to be able to go back and change it to Officer Stoddard, but he was gracious enough to offer his time to be on Nextdoor.com and listen to the conversations and provide valuable law enforcement input. So he did not intentionally disguise his name. We'll get that fixed, but we have Sergeant Singh and Officer Stoddard.
Hey, good evening. I'm Sergeant Singh, and I represent the city of Atlanta, Bucket North Precinct. I've been up here for the last 24 years. Don't tell anybody, I'm a lot. But when I hear Chief Yendor say that he had one homicide in the Brookhaven city, I feel like I don't even speak because you guys have no crime. Because this is just one small portion of the city in Fulton County. And the last time I looked at my iPhone, we were up to like 71 homicides. So if I was in another neighborhood, we would probably talk about 15 homicides in this day. So one homicide, I don't want to say congratulations, but I mean. And when I look at the Atlanta side for Brookhaven, we have no homicide in 2014. I went back to September 1st, just like the major did, and it showed that we had 11 burglaries in 2014 in comparison to 2013, we had 7. So there's an increase, like you said. Lost from auto, from September 1st to today, we had 10 lost from auto. In 2013, we had the same, so there's no change. Looking back on auto theft, we had 4 auto thefts from the same report period. In 2013, we had 2. So we have an increase of 35%. Right. Only thing I can just elaborate is to you guys. It's good to see a turnout like this in a neighborhood that security conscious, and you guys have a responsibility, and you have to take the police. I've been policing for 30 years, and I'm chief endorsed for 38, major officer goals and stuff. After year, put all of us experience together, we have maybe 70 years of police experience here, but the responsibility still got to come back to the basics. Like Major said, when you go to the mall, don't take your laptop, get out, and put it in the trunk of your car because there's somebody watching. We have had so many locks in punch, and your click will work when you come back, your car starts, and then 4 days later, when you're looking for your pocketbook, you put gas in your car, and you go all the way, late when you're at one of your gas stations, you're like, where's my pocketbook? And then you at park at the mall, somebody punch your lock in, not realizing there was a needle hole on the driver's side door, your laptop is gone. So secure everything from before you leave your house or from your job. Make sure that you have your keys in your hands. If you're leaving out, going out of town, share the information with somebody. Let your neighbor know, let somebody know, check it out, stop the mail if you have to. It's just come back to the basic. Technology is where we are, but the basic safety tips, you have to do it in order to be safe. If you leave your car, most people have their car keys. It's a smart car, I think what they call it. You don't start it up anymore. A lot of people leave their cars. I go to Quick Trip on St. Marcus where I get my coffee every morning, and 4 or 5 cars on all those cars just running. You know, but as it's getting cold, safety people crank their car up, they go inside, go get dressed. The ladies put their makeup on, take forever. I mean, so when you come back, you go to your driveway and your car is gone. So you make yourself a 7-day victory. And in order to prevent this thing, you guys just need to share information. If you have adult kids, teenage kids, teach them the same thing. Every time I have 4 kids, every time I call them, they're like, I'm not speeding, I have no guns, I have no drugs, and I'm not robbing anybody, because that's the same conversation. But I'm going to turn the floor over to the lead officer, and we'll take the question regarding the intersection from West Roxborough and
Roxborough.
That's all my big.
Yeah, so we'll take it if we have enough time to.
We had a question in the back and then perhaps. Yes, ma'am.
This is an absolute no disrespect to the officers, because every time we have encountered officers, they felt our frustration. However, we have had a car stolen and had to wait 3.5 hours for response to get an officer to.
DeKalb PD, that's okay.
Naturally, right? And then we had probably the most scary thing was we had a glass break alarm go off at our home after midnight about a year ago, and we waited in terror for 40 minutes for response. Wow. And it was in the basement, 3-story house, and very scary. Trying to round up the kids from different bedrooms and, the whole 9 yards. And it is absolutely, like I say, no disrespect to your efforts. We understand, you know, that you're stretched. However, you know, when the car was stolen, we were 1/10 of a mile from Zone 5. And then now, you know, we're just less than 2 miles from the zone. And to wait 40 minutes and to wait 3.5 hours, I mean, we had the low jack on the car, but they couldn't even do their job until we could provide a police report. And so, you know, it's frustrating with the taxes that we pay, and I don't know what we can do as residents to be able to try to get more representation. I know you're stretched, but somehow we've got to be able to see more representation in our neighborhood, you know, somehow, and especially after midnight with the glass breakage alarm going off. So I don't know if you have any recommendations that we could do. And
I can just piggyback and just ask you a question. It could probably take forever, but your alarm company, once they get the alarm, maybe you set your alarm up. I don't have an alarm at home. I'll tell you that straight up. I have blocks and dogs. Your alarm company sometimes would cause a delay because we are a third party. We not making any excuse, but it's just a transition as it goes. If your alarm company is representing is in Texas, your call center is in Texas, they get the alarm. By the time they're routing back to Atlanta, the dispatcher get it. It's just a false alarm. It depends on how you put your codes in regarding
That's
the priority.
not the case in this, according to the officer. Our alarm company's in Decatur, and the officers explained what was going on, that they were on the south side of the precinct, and there was somebody else on another side, and they got their wires crossed on who was supposed to come, and you know, what have you. I'm sure that can happen, but that was not the situation, at least as it was explained when they did arrive on scene.
Yeah, 40 minutes is too long for response time for on-board, so that's something we can do.
Well, let me just say, this has been a while, right?
It was in the last year.
Because you see, we are our priority changes, and this is not just to give you the answer, but he'll tell you, and Officer Gomez will verify. We hold no alarm calls anymore because, like you said, I'm burglary had stepped up. So if I'm a supervisor, so I have access to the computer. I'm on the patrol, and I look. If I see the dispatcher holding an alarm anywhere in the city, anywhere in the Zone 2 district, which is 44 square miles big, I'll get on the radio and I'll say, hey, and he have the same access. Hey, are you holding an alarm of Pine Or so because of that, because of your experience like yours. And you're not the only person playing or have that experience. We hold our standard operating procedure says we hold no alarm call.
You used to hold the alarm call?
Well, the dispatcher would.
They would prioritize the calls.
Yeah.
So if you got a car accident with injuries, that's going to take priority over the alarm call.
Yeah.
Has there been any data correlation yet to crime and these things that tell where we are if we have that arranged, you know, for locators?
Well, like the chief said, if you register your phone with the city.
No, I mean the perpetrator of the crime has access to knowing where you are if you allow that on your Google whatever. I just had one today where I realized that, whoa, I don't want anybody knowing where I am when I'm messaging or texting.
Well, so that's a technical question to me. I'm just a lay policeman.
You can shut that off on like Facebook or whatever. You can shut that off.
Yes.
Adjust privacy settings like Facebook, because you don't want other people to know where you are.
And I'm saying that's an awareness thing that I think we all need to be aware that if we're texting and our locator is on,
Like
then,
people like to put on Facebook, like I'm at the gym. You know,
yes,
perpetrators have access to that.
exactly.
At the gym. So we have to be cognizant.
I have a comment more than other. The county line, landlocked line, runs down through our community. there are homes, several of them, that are actually both in Brookhaven and Atlanta, or Fulton and DeKalb. Does any of your statistics take that into consideration? I know it has been a problem in some areas.
Well, like you said, he's working on one right now, and I think I know which one he's working on. But there's also the apartment complex right behind the Green's Liquor Store.
Mm-hmm.
The entrance is in Brookhaven, and the back is in Atlanta, next to the creek. So every time in the cab use the police, if we have an alarm code out of here, it could be Atlanta police and the cab. I'll go together. And it's a good thing, you don't get two for the price of one. But I mean, the Atlanta, the cab, Brookhaven, the communication technology, they share information. So if it's in Brookhaven, those entrances on the front, Brookhaven is gonna make sure that Atlanta dispatch is aware of what's going on. So I've noticed that communication, even with Sandy Spring, we have the same thing at Chastain Park. We have crossover with Sandy Spring. So Cobb County, same thing. It so happened that zone will sit in the middle of everybody around. It's like a Caribbean where the sea goes around.
In your professional opinion, is it better to have your own personal security system through a private company or through, like a corporation where you have video surveillance and things like that, versus investing money in a neighborhood watch program? What is a better crime deterrent for these?
I mean, I strongly support the neighborhood watch program. Officer Gomez helps me out frequently on calls. If I'm caught up on something, like an accident or larceny or any number of calls, and I see something within me, because I'm always, cognizant of what's going on when I'm working. I'll give him a call, see if he's busy, and pick it up. That increases our response time significantly. I can only be in one place at one time, so I strongly encourage you to continue to support the neighborhood watch program.
Yeah, but not from a response time aspect. I'm talking about the deterrent aspect.
Right.
Like if a thief sees 6, private security signs and sees a red light that you have cameras going, are they going to be less deterred to come to your house versus having a red Pine Hill security sticker on your mailbox?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The video surveillance is a type of deterrent.
I have some investigators. We put up 24-hour surveillance signs and stuff in our neighborhood, hedgerows on Shady Valley. It's not stopping. I mean, I hate to be that blunt about it, but you just gotta be vigilant.
Excuse me, did you say you just put the signs, or did you actually put the cameras?
Right.
They tell you there's cameras, there's not.
You have to. So I'm talking about you actually have to physically install the field cameras.
Yeah, no.
And the video surveillance systems you can purchase, like in Fry's, they're not that expensive. You get complete systems for a few $100s. But people are kind of anxious to invest in it, but I would strongly encourage people to invest in it.
We in Saratoga, off of Shady Valley, we have put in security cameras, and
You guys have the cameras?
we have cameras, and we've got the signs,
Yeah.
a really big sign.
Yeah, I think one of the things that security cameras, it will deter people. They're gonna go to the easiest target rather than something with cameras. But in addition to that, it's a good resource for all of us to go back to. I mean, we had town of Brookhaven had four or five apartments broken into. We just put out, it was on the news, I think 3 days ago, Atlanta does the same thing all the time. And actually, we got a call the very next day from somebody saying, I know that one guy, and who's already in jail, so it helps out after the fact.
Hi, how are you? I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Tiffany Harlow from the District Attorney's Office, and I'll answer that question for you. The majority of the decisions that we catch, that when APD is able to make a case, is from witnesses in the neighborhood, and our prosecution is a lot easier when we have eyewitnesses and folks who live in the area who can identify the people. So I think neighborhood watch is absolutely the way you need to go. Because if you're just going to rely on your alarm system, that's just an indication that someone's breaking in. The police are going to come, the likelihood they're going to catch someone is a different matter. The way that we catch criminals is by you guys seeing something and saying something. And in addition to that, what happens is when they realize that a neighborhood is being monitored, that you all are being proactive, it does definitely deter them. They will then go, unfortunately, find another area. I'm not going to say they're going to quit what they're doing, but they will more likely stop coming to your neighborhood. So if that's any sort of, confidence in the Neighborhood Watch program and what it can do for you with respect to when we do catch a criminal, I definitely think you guys are going in the right direction to lean more that way than to put all of your eggs in the basket of a security system.
Thank you.
Questions for both counties. In your professional opinion and in your experience specific to Pine Hills, do the transient pose a threat or security risk to Pine Hills, in your professional opinion and your experience?
That's your regulars.
Relative to who you're talking about, I just do enforce the criminal law and the city ordinances. If somebody's breaking the law, we can take action. It's not a crime to be homeless, and it's not a crime to be poor. But, if they're breaking the law,
Right,
we can
have
take
you
effective
experienced
action.
transients, homeless people breaking the law, entering?
It just depends on the demographic. Most of, I say this, because I've been in this neighborhood, I've been in the Bucket precinct for 4 years. If you're talking with a transient from Midtown, downtown, their pattern of crime is different. Most guys up here, they just live in the woods, to be honest, they are on the military, and they dwell there. Sometimes they're a nuisance, and sometimes we go eradicate them when we get a chance to get with DOC and we go to the but sometimes they help us sometimes too. Sometimes they'll tell us, they're like, hey, look, we know who broke in the house last night. So we communicate with them. If you're dealing with Midtown or downtown or your Field Transit, then you have not to separate. But you have two different set of transient. So I would say my Bucket transient, most times they help us out. Because I can send one of my officers, go on there, and listen, pick this guy from bringing him to the precinct. He'll tell us what he knows.
Yeah, I had an incident a month ago where a homeless guy was sitting on a rock, the sister, right there on West Rockboro and Roxborough Point. He was sitting there, I stopped him. That's what he was doing. So he was walking in the neighborhood. Obviously, it's a homeless guy. Keep on walking on towards Buford Highway. And when I got on towards Buford Highway in Shady Valley, and that's when they took care of him. And she goes, I see you took care of it. I said, yeah. How'd you know? It's like 10 people called. They called her instead of me. I go, okay.
Question, standpoint of neighbor next door, the app, basically what's being involved with.
Yeah.
And I think for most of us, basically, we're getting more educated from that program. So, standpoint of Pine Hills, actually, how many active members do we actually have in the community that are involved in that website? Because I'm thinking the more proactive we are getting the community involved in the website, it's going to light up several different things. One, basically, they're going to know what the crime is going on. I mean, I've been more educated in the last few years by it, and I've been one of the crime victims. The second part is when you're trying to increase membership within a community to bike run, it's obviously social media, it's great. So the more they see things are being taking place and seeing reactions, you're trying not to make it become a wrong type of site. I mean, it's like, sometimes it gets turned around and people use it for different reasons. But, trying to grow our association or creating a crime watch or whatever the case may be to make it more successful, I think if you utilize that program and market our own community within, then you're obviously going to have much more members and much more success with that.
Yeah, I want to address that, kind of do a time check, all right, out of respect for everybody. It's about 8:35, we had this till 9 o'clock. I want to recap all of the topics that were submitted to me, and I want to get the open dialogue tonight or the agreement that we're all heading in the right direction. I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning and have my wife say, did you see that post on nextdoor.com about the meeting last night that didn't accomplish? So I want to come back and recap this. All right, I would also invite any final questions relative to these topics about the officers, or to the officers, and then recap what we think we need to do as a community coming out of here tonight. We have an opportunity from an individual, Bob Carter, who is a technology representative that Michael's been talking to. We may look at implementation at the neighborhood side. He's got some technologies, I believe, at the homeowner side. So we have a chance to hear from Bob a little bit tonight as well. But going down the list, Nextdoor.com is not a Pine Hills Neighborhood Association sponsored program. We do think we've seen significant communication. Like I said, I've talked to the chief, to Officer Stoddard, talked to Sergeant Singh. They think it's valuable. And so we encourage the communication to keep up. A little more productive here or there, but regardless, we think it's a good tool. I would encourage, I think there's an invite function on Nextdoor.com where you can invite others if you have their contact information and you don't see them in the member list. But that is not governed by Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. We do use it to try and communicate as we do the website and a MailChimp program that we use for our email distribution. So, Nextdoor.com, communications, any open questions for law enforcement or Pine Hills Neighborhood Association on that topic. Method of the transients. I think that Sergeant Singh has addressed that. Any questions on that particular issue as it relates to us as a neighborhood?
Has there been any change in that, increase in transient recently? Or for those in Pine Hills who don't know this, where Green's liquor store is, there's a bridge under there. There's a lot of transients that live there. And that's why we're seeing an increase around there right now.
And I do have a question about that, because some of, and perhaps you can comment on this. Maybe there is a difference to some degree of known homeless who've been living under that bridge for a very long period of time, and we kind of got to know them, and maybe this is something that's been somewhat helpful to police. But my bigger concern are the unknown ones, the ones that are passing through, the ones that are trying to swap with the bridge. Is there a difference?
Let me just address that. Well, I'm the head of a big church security here, so a lot of transit. So the EMS started not supporting us. They're very territorial. The regular traffic are very territorial, so they don't want to get people. Every time, I'm serious. Every time new people come in, I get a message at the precinct, or they have my cell phone number. Actually, I've been around for a while. I don't hear what's on. And they'll say, hey, there's a new guy down there. I don't know where he's coming from. And then two occasions, they gave up new guys, but they were the sex offender list, and one was wanted from wrong job. Very common. So that's the experience I can tell you. So it's like I say, you have the regular transit, and they don't like movies. As a matter of fact, the last camp I visited is off of Garrison Drive, where you can locate right there next to Piedmont, across from that big rainbow paper. I'm from Jamaica, and when I went on to that trail, those houses look better than my house that I had. They had windows and carpet and everything. I'm like, oh man, all this time, I didn't know, and they were right next to the creek, and the water was just going by. So I mean, if I'm a transit, that's where I'm going. But I'm just saying, and the reason why I went on here is because one of them called and said, hey, there's this guy who just came on the leave, and then I went up here, that was one of the guys that
Just one general security question. Majority of the crime committed is people outside the area coming into the area. Correct. So
it's just keeping an eye out for people that aren't.
Well, it's two sets of crime. You got property crime, you got white collar crime. So, you know, the white collar crime is still in your surroundings. The property crime is mostly coming to you.
And a little bit more on what you're asking, you're hitting the nail on the head, and it is keeping an eye out for that strange behavior and that strange person in that strange vehicle. You can have an officer ride through and see a vehicle back down your neighbor's driveway, and we ride right by because we don't realize that that truck isn't usually there. Whereas you, as a neighbor, you know what your neighbor drives, you know what their work schedules are, and we rely on you to identify what is suspicious, what vehicle's not supposed to be there, and call us so that we can identify it. So you're tracking along the right path from that.
So a good segue into something that's not that that's not important, but like the Pine Hills, big
Yard sale.
The yard sale. Okay, so that's something I think we should talk about, stuff like that, and how would we go going forward? Because I've had $23,000 taken out of my mailbox from credit cards, and I actually had an investigation. And Brookhaven does a good job, but I get a call, and I called them and said this happened. I get a call 40 days later from the Detective Napier saying, well, it was only assigned to you sooner. We only got one camera. We identified the person who it was, but when he tried to get a warrant, he couldn't get a warrant because he didn't have enough evidence. Because he said that if I would have gotten it sooner, I could have got more footage from all the places in the next mall and all these other places. And this one individual is known, and they're aware of it, has taken probably 15 or 20 people's mailboxes and then over $150,000 worth of credit card fraud in Pine Hills.
Yeah.
But they can't do it. But I could have caught him if it would have been responded to quicker. So, shit happens, things fall through the cracks, but, bottom line is, I'm pissed because I had to deal with it.
Two separate conversations.
Yeah, how do we
One about the community programs and what we do in yard sales. We'll handle that second. Down the list, on the topics of interest that have been submitted to me, mail theft is one. So why don't we focus specifically on that from the experts with law enforcement on mail theft?
Well, what we generally tell people, I don't do this is in the old days you put the mail, put the check, life check it in the mailbox, and the postman come and pick it up. The milkman come, he drop the milk off, the laundry guy come and hand it over. Those days are gone.
Now they take your check and make fake checks.
Because they take your check and they make fake check, and then when you, specifically, you became a victim, there is 500 other victims popping up in the metro area. And I'm pretty sure the major, the chief, can say, you see their number was up there. Our capacity in zone 2, just the zone 2, every day I have calls. Hey, I called 2 days ago, nobody called back. I called 3 days ago. Sometimes I go find the unit commander and say, hey, the gentleman is not happy. Hey, I got 15 people that So it's just when it hit home, But one victim is 400. It's just the way it is. And we prioritize our calls and our response. There's a policy and procedure that we follow. And when you are the victim, it's not quick. The response is not quick. And one good thing that all of you guys have been doing is all that. Brookhaven, Atlanta, Sandy Springs, and all the surrounding villages. We work together pretty close. And that's an advantage. Because in the past, sharing information wasn't that forthcoming.
Does anyone have any experience with these locking mailboxes?
Yes, our whole neighborhood has them on Lennox Valley, and they work wonderful.
I can tell you they work. I'm in charge of the juvenile patrol, and the person of the people who have those locking mailboxes, and they work. I rarely have any complaints regarding mail theft or anything from people who have the locking.
Be careful when you buy them. Be careful when you buy them. I mean, if you're testing, we put up a locking mailbox, I put up a locking mailbox. But when you're going out looking at these, you go down to Lowe's, look at a locking mailbox, if you can stick your hand to the top part and actually reach into the bottom that's locked, that's doing nothing for you whatsoever. So if you're behind one, just make sure you can't reach your hand in. I was actually amazed at how many boxes I can literally grab out of your hand. There's one at Home Depot that's basically $100. It's definitely a good drop, and there's no way you can handle it. So
So everybody understands path of least resistance. Just be conscious, if your neighbors start popping up with blocking mailboxes, you probably, if you don't have one, become a path of least resistance target. So, again, I want to get all this stuff out on the table now that those are opportunities to provide continued layers of security. Some of it's out of our control, and some of it's in your own hands. But you had a question. Was there a question over here?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying lockable mailboxes.
Okay. So we did talk about, I think, the increase in petty theft crimes. We talked about the mail situation, transients, nextdoor.com. There were questions submitted to me on Shady Valley. I committed to everybody that if it was questions submitted, I would post it. Not a lot of detail. Is there a discussion about Shady Valley Park that we need to have tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to the safety of the park and the criminal activity there?
I personally can't. Law enforcement certainly can.
You on the
I'm the one who drives the boost, and I'm the name it inside. I'll sit in the park. Yeah, I have security. I'll sit in the park and watch and observe.
Can you
And
speak up, please?
I'll sit in the park and watch and observe. I'll also get out of the vehicle and walk around the park, and I'll go to the soccer field, just looking, look bushes back there, whatever, to see if anything's going on. So, yeah,
There's clearly activity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious what has actually been down. Like when you go for small kids and there's shady stuff going on in Shady Valley Park, and you see men going into porta potties and then another one. I mean, I've been there alone with my children and have felt incredibly insecure. And I guess I've seen your car and I've seen a patrol car in the parking lot while this is going on, and still nothing happened.
While this was going on, did you call 911 or come knock on the door or something?
No, because I didn't want to cross the parking lot with my two little kids by myself while these cars with men were parked in the parking lot, going in and out of the porta potty. I mean, what am I supposed to do now? Where's the porta potty?
Let me address this for. I grew up in the neighborhood, so moved here when I was 5. I'm 51 now. Moved back in 2000. Shady Valley Park used to be
Really nasty.
very, very bad shape. One of the most popular places in the United States for
Hookup.
men, basically prostitution. And we have very few issues with that now. I asked Officer Gomez, we're getting something from next door about porta potties. One of the porta potties was set up, and we called the city, and it had not been permitted. They're allowed to have porta potties there for events. Now, they are not allowed to have porta potties and just bring them. And so they were cited. I guess like a week later, there was an event, and they had a porta potty delivered again. Called the city, it was permitted, it was removed within 2 days. If you see anything at all at Shady Valley Park, call 911. With the security, there's a phone number that you call the security officer if they're on duty. I asked Officer Gomez, after reading something on Nextdoor, to check out parked cars, and he went by, and it was 2 women in separate cars hanging out in the parking lot. I'm like, great, it's changed. It's no longer there's nothing that the officers could do for people parked, having lunch, having a break, going over emails on their phone, just hanging out. If you see anything, which is activity it looks like prostitution or drug use or anything like that, call 911. Everybody has a cell phone. The park is so much better than it has been in 20 years. So it is a safe place to bring your children, and you should be thankful to have new playground equipment, the ball field, which is being well cared for, sidewalks that have been repaired, the city's working on.
As a taxpayer, you
increasing the
expect
lighting in the
that.
parking lot. You know, all of this stuff happens, it happens slowly, but where we were 10, 20 years ago, and where we are now, you just need to be careful.
We need to be aware.
But once again, if you see something, you call 911. It is nowhere near what it used to be. One of the neighbors.
Michael.
But all of this is about neighborhood participation. If you see something, you make a phone call, and that's going to improve the neighborhood, the security, everything about it. I have personally asked the security to, when they park at the park, to stay close to Shady Valley, because there's more of an issue with people running the stop signs and having a gauge of what's going on. After I saw, I guess it was your next door post, I asked the officers, and it's on the sign-in sheet, they get addresses of people that are out of town, instructions at the bottom, please walk around with them. There was somebody that was arrested that was, met somebody online, and this was about a month ago. And so when things are brought to their attention, they can do something about it. But if you don't call 911, they can't do anything about it. And if you're concerned about something looking suspicious, once again, call 911. It's better safe than sorry.
If you need immediate assistance, contact 911. If you contact me on Nextdoor, I will respond. If you want to get something done, like related to law enforcement, just contact me directly. I'm the beat officer, so I'm responsible for it. I will respond to all of your concerns. My email address is rcstoddard@atlantaga.gov.
And also, just one thing, a lot of people scared to call 911. I don't know why, I don't know. But, so you guys call 911, but we, the city, Atlanta, has a 24-hour non-emergency dispatch line you can call right now. You can go to Atlanta 911, can I help you? And the number is online, it's 404-658-6666. So a lot of people are scared to call 911. Oh, I don't want to call 911. There's a story run across the road, 658-6666, take you to a live dispatch 24 hours a day. And like, if you're in the park with your kids, I see your concern, and you don't want to do 911, you just call 404, and you can write this down and put it online. It's 404-658-6666. It's a 24-hour non-emergency dispatch center, and you don't have to go to the 911. All it is, when a call comes in on that line, a live dispatch will pick up 911. Can I help you? What's the emergency? And then you say, hey, and they'll decide if they put you on hold and they come back to you. So if you don't want to do it, yes, 3 years online. We've had the number for 30 years.
Is the park supposed to be locked at 11 o'clock at night? Because I drove past at midnight this weekend and it was not
The
locked.
park
I
is
should have
not
called, right?
I
should have called.
No, one thing, also with the park being closed, the gates were put up when there was a real problem with the park. And the city of Atlanta closed parking 24/7, okay? So the gate was locked, it stayed locked. I was given a key, I started unlocking the gate and locking it back. There should not be a gate at a public park. It is a public park. They say that it's closed at a certain time, and when the officers are on duty, if they see a car, they can investigate. But it is a public park. People are allowed to park there.
So are the soccer fields part of the public park?
Yes, the city of Atlanta controls through Parks and Recreation, leasing out the soccer fields. And it's also, people can go down there and use them.
We've been down there trying to just move around with the ball or whatever and lock.
That's the only call I've gotten in the last 20 years.
Well, the soccer fields used to be locked for revitalization of the grass, and it was locked for an extended period of time because of damage. It is never locked now. They locked the gate coming from Shady Valley, but there's the bridge bridge going across so you can access the park, and you can also walk down to the park from Shady Grove.
Well, we've been across it when you could go across the bridge and go right in there, and then we've been back, and there's a gate there.
Well, if it is locked up, you can call the city of Atlanta, because it's a city of Atlanta park. You can ask them, they've kept the gate there in case the fields need to be closed for revitalization. So it's Parks and Recreation.
All right, I'm going to do kind of a quick time check. Is there anything else on this list that we think needs to be addressed tonight? Question?
So, I thought the officers were going to go over the most productive use of nextdoor.com because I thought,
so that's the top on the list.
It's a little alarming when people just say, well, there's a suspicious car, here's the tag number, I'm going to go check it out. That doesn't seem appropriate to me. I mean, we all have good intentions, but is that a productive use of that sort of thing? It's alarming because if someone comes on my street and parks for 20 or 30 minutes.
You need an immediate response, call 911 about it.
Well, I don't do it. I find it's dangerous I feel like what it's doing is it's kind of inciting some negative things within our community about just maybe a car parked next to someone's house, which.
Yeah.
I mean,
let me just. The Pine Hills Neighborhood Association cannot control what people post. I think it's an opinion.
Yeah.
I think you have the right to post the opinion.
Yes.
Major Burley would like to.
So real quick on that topic, we have just recently, and I'm going to have Officer Miller make his way to the front. We just recently joined Nextdoor as a law enforcement agency. I think we're one of the first in the area. Dunwoody and Chambly, correct me, Miller, if I'm wrong. There's a couple other agencies that have picked that off of us once we joined. But Miller is our Nextdoor liaison. He kind of runs it for our agency. I'm going to let him talk to you and answer those questions real quick. I know we're short on time.
I'll make this quick. I'm Officer Miller. I'm one of the main contributors to our Nextdoor account through the second agency in Georgia to become a part of it. Then we're joining it, and so is Chambly. I've been in contact with Nextdoor. They are working on apps for law enforcement so we can provide information from the field. It's being implemented as part of our BPAC program. So resident Brookhaven residents that become members of our Neighborhood Watch program will be able to be in direct contact with their liaison officers. Officers are getting permission, they're going to become users of the program to be able to share information back and forth. Asking that you don't share certain information on that. Don't want to know if you live alone or if your partner's going to be away, those kind of things, in an open forum. Anything that you wouldn't share with a stranger, don't share it on. So those are the things, and I would recommend not starting getting people upset and start talking about vigilante things, getting it done and then setting up your own bank cards and do that. I can run for hours on why that's a really bad idea. I'm sure you get it. But give us a call, let us handle it. We're using it just to share information back and forth, and also as a way to become more ingrained in our community so you get to know us, and we get to know you, we get to address your problems. Right now, we cannot see anything that you post online. The only thing that we can see that's going on in the neighborhood is a response to our posts. Again, that's something else that I've been talking with Nextdoor about. They're looking at adding a functionality where neighborhoods can invite officers to become more ingrained on the program and be able to see the conversations that are going on, so we can intervene a little bit quicker rather than getting an email or a private message from somebody letting me know, hey, there's some bad discussions happening on Nextdoor, you may want to address it. We can see it going on, interject, stop the rumors, and make any clarifications we can. That's how we do it. Any questions?
All right, out of respect for time, I want to recap a couple things and then we have a remaining question. We need 2 or 3 things. Mathematically in my head right now, if we get to 300 homes in the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association dues and the security dues, we keep our officer time as is. We've got a $20,000+ discretionary fund that we can put in place immediately. We need a security council. So we need 3 people from the DeKalb side and 3 people from the Fulton side. The enrollment for the 2015 dues is open now. You can go to the website, and we implemented PayPal a year ago, so you don't have to send checks. You can contribute on the website. we think we can make some big headway with that. So I'm just gonna put the number out there and say, let's get at least 300. Michael and I will post weekly how many are enrolling for 2015, and I say that we set that as an objective. We need help at the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association board level for a community programs council. We're not going to get into addressing details of yard sales and all that tonight, but we do think it should be a neighborhood collaboration and discussion, and we'd like to have a council that addresses that, whether it's an open program, closed program, what we do with the Halloween carnival, but we just need some help. So that's the second item, walking away from here tonight, that I think that we really need some help on. Any final questions? Yes, sir.
One question about the security council you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
What's the commitment we expect from someone wanting to join the order?
I've been volunteering for Pine Hills Neighborhood Association for 3 years, and it's time. More time, more productive, more ideas, more we can implement. I would suggest that the Security Council is probably high priority enough that you don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. I would encourage, if you want to participate, to come forward. Maybe we hold a separate group session as to who all came forward, talk about what the time commitment is, and maybe we can parse out different levels of participation. But right now, we just need the volunteers to start the process and really figure it out.
Are you looking for volunteers tonight? Are you looking for a show of hands? Or do you want
If you want to show your hand tonight, that's great. You can talk to Michael on the Security Council, talk to myself on the Community Programs Council. All of our email address information is on the website. I encourage you to use the website. A lot of information about the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. It is mypinehills.org. Any other questions tonight? There's an Molly, question. There is an individual here, Bob Carter, that would be open to talking to anybody about technology available for the home in the area of surveillance. Bob, if you can stand up and raise your hand real quick. Bob is available if anyone would like to talk with Bob, but we will go ahead and close the formal meeting.